Welcome to the Cameron-Brooks podcast. Great to have you here in Fredericksburg, Texas. Thanks for making the drive over. And probably be a good idea if you just introduce just a minute or so, a little bit of yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, it's great to be here, Joel. So a little bit about myself. Born and raised in Dallas, Texas. I went to the Naval Academy and I commissioned as a surface warfare officer. So surface warfare officer for the last 5 years, stationed in San Diego, California. And I actually am now on a skill bridge with Cameron-Brooks. I'm living right down the road in Bernie, Texas. And I'm getting married to my fiance Victoria here in September. So
Excellent. And Victoria's here as well, listening and watching, so no pressure. So there's lots of things that we want to get into today. This is actually the first episode of our podcast, which are like up into the 170s, somewhere around there, where we've had somebody that's actually not come to the conference before. So you're the first person who's in the program. You're about 8 weeks out from the conference. No pressure, no nerves. And we just wanted to hear a little bit about your story of why did you decide to get out? What options you started exploring? Why Cameron-Brooks? And some of the things you've been doing in the program and some of the challenges of waiting for the career conference. So that's what we wanted to get into today. And maybe why don't you, we talked about it before we got into, walk me through the decision to get out and why now?
yeah, absolutely. So kind of a background, because I think it's necessary, and I think a lot of people will kind of feel the same way, is I had decided, you know what, I don't want to continue to stay in the military. But I was asking myself, what is it that I want to do, right? And I think being so busy in my 5 years as a SWO, never really stopped and really kind of thought about that. Never really put a exit strategy or transition strategy in place. And so I was kind of putting it off, right? I recall a conversation where I had just turned down a great opportunity with the Navy to go get my MBA paid for at the school of my choice, and then pretty hefty signing bonus because I knew I didn't want to stay in. And we were talking in our I guess we were interviewing each other,
Right.
and I hadn't officially partnered with Cameron-Brooks yet, but I told you, hey, Joel, I turned down that opportunity. I'm going to get out. I think I'm going to go. Do shore duty. Getting married, I just want to kind of relax and rest and just kind of enjoy my first 2 years of marriage with Victoria. And you asked me a couple questions, but then you weren't prodding at me, but you asked me, why wait? And that was kind of a question that I think got at my really got at me, and that forced me to really ask myself, why are you waiting? What is it? What's that was the question behind the real question. Is there a fear there? Is there, do you really want to wait? And so I kind of went home and started asking myself these questions. And from then I knew that I wanted to get out right away.
So sometimes that fear or just the security, kind of the same thing of the known, especially when you're getting married and you kind of want to make sure everything's smooth and starting off the marriage, right? I think you talked about that. So you started exploring options before Cameron-Brooks, though, too. Obviously, there's lots of different ways to make the transition. You have friends that have made different ways they've made the transition. What did you explore?
Well, I explored. The first thing was I was like, hey, I want to go and get my MBA because I want to go continue my education, love to learn, and that'll be a good way to transition out. And I just started looking at it. I was like, timing is not really matching up for that. And well as that, I was looking at the SAC conferences, right? Being a Naval Academy alumni, they preach, Service Academy Career Conference, and it's a great option. But I started searching around and trying to figure out what's my strategy, and I really didn't have a good one, and it wasn't going to really line up with my timeline, with getting out of the Navy and whether that's the application process. I also, when I made the decision, I was getting ready to go out on deployment, right? So taking tests to the GMAT or the GRE,
Right.
And just the time to kind of do a career search while I'm on deployment, and I come and I get right out right when I get back. And I was like, I need a plan in place especially I'm getting married, I need to be able to provide, for my family and my future wife. And, that's kind of where I was like, Cameron-Brooks really came into the picture.
Sounds like it's because we had a holistic plan.
Yep.
One person's actually, I think it's actually the person that said it was one of your Naval Academy classmates, even a soccer player. She'd said, you're like this node that you go to for Cameron-Brooks. You kind of know how to get out of the military. If you want to do a skill bridge, how to do that, know how to prepare, can line up the interviews, help the follow-up process. So it sounds like Cameron-Brooks provided you a plan to do that. We have this this agreement, where we ask for you to wait till the career conference to apply on your own, set up other interviews. I imagine since you're detached right now, or not technically detached, but you're not on the ship, you're doing your skill bridge program. Conference is about 8 weeks away. What gives you the confidence that the conference is going to work? Or maybe that's not even the right way to say it. What gives you the confidence the conference is the right place to start your career search for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, the skill bridge is great because I can with Cameron-Brooks. And I know there was a recent podcast on it, on the skill bridge. I listened to that one actually last week.
Okay.
And the skill bridge allows me the time to really focus on what I need to focus on, and that's interview preparation. It's also allowing me the time to just kind of decompress and just kind of focus on what I need to focus on. And really just through the DPP program, it's allowed me to just go back through all the tabs, right? I've read probably about 25 books so far through the program. And that's allowed me just to start speaking a new language. And if I'm not fluently speaking a new language yet, it's given me the background and the base knowledge that I need, right? Because as a non-traditional hire, pivoting from the military to corporate America, we definitely come from the world of non-profitability and the military.
Yeah.
And I'm making a change, right? And so the way we operate in the military, it's not all that different. It's not all that different from the way corporate America operates, just different bottom lines. And so kind of getting at your question though, is why start at a career conference? The biggest one for me is that you kind of bypass all the filters, right? You bypass the HR process, the resume, uploading your resume,
right?
Right. I could be interviewing for a position where I might not meet the requirements because I only have 5 years of managing projects,
right,
and not 7 years, right? And so I bypass that, and you go directly to the decision makers and the hiring managers, and that's why I want to start off with a career conference at Cameron-Brooks.
Yeah, and if we can bring this into, you're from Texas, Vic is from Texas. You guys have a preference for Texas. We just talked about this before we hopped on here. What do you see as the value of going to the career conference and having, if you're both from Texas, why not just do this on your own besides the filters and try to just look right now, at least starting just looking only in Texas?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked a little bit about this before, and I just I had told you, hey, definitely feel a pull after being away from Texas, my home state, for the last 9 years, and being back here for the last month. I do feel kind of this pull to be like, hey, I need to get back to Texas. This is where I want to be, right? But every major decision I've made in my life, and dedicate this to to my father, who's had a huge influence in my life, is he's kind of broadened my view and my horizon on. Hey, you might see this, you might know that you want this, but that might not be the best option, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's great about this process. Is you never know, what companies are going to be at the conference. You don't know what positions you're going to be interviewing for yet, but you do know that it's not always in your control, and you might go someplace and be planted there, and it might change your life.
Yeah.
So.
And you have to have a lot of trust, it seems like, though, too, right now. I mean, I was telling you and Victoria that it's been 24 years since I made the transition out. I'm sure it hasn't changed, but I remember I came to a June of 99 career conference. In May of 99, I remember, I sure hope Cameron-Brooks delivers on everything they've been telling me they're delivering. What gives you the confidence that it's gonna come through?
Yeah. So I have confidence because Cameron-Brooks has been doing this for over 3 decades, right? This is a proven strategy. And it also gives me confidence that I look at, other friends that I have or friends of friends who have used Cameron-Brooks and have gotten out, and they have nothing but great things to say about the process and all the pros. I don't think I've heard any negatives about partnering with Cameron-Brooks in the transition process. So, anytime you're making a big change and a big career change, you want to have a strategy and a plan in place, right? And I think that's what Cameron-Brooks provides. It's in a way kind of consultation. Hey, it helps you see things. Really, it's a free of cost. I'm not paying you, you're not paying me, and you are helping me grow as a professional and as a person, and helping me navigate this process as I get out.
Yeah. Now, are there, with the options that you explored on your own, looked at, did you perceive, the ones that might be equal or similar to that you felt like kind of aligned with still what you were looking to do?
I think at the time, right when I made the decision, or when I was trying to figure out how I was going to exit and get out of the military, there's just everybody has input and everybody has thoughts on the process. And most of the time, the input and thoughts about getting out of the military come from people who you work with and who are still in the military, who haven't made that transition yet.
Right.
So everyone has an opinion. And so I was searching around, being an Academy alum, I was like, hey, maybe the SAC is going to be my primary means of doing a conference. I just started to learn a little bit more about the SAC, and I started to ask questions. And anybody, I think, that's making a transition or making a big decision, you need to ask people who have done it before, right? So that was where I first started. And I started asking around to Cameron-Brooks alumni about the process and about the partnership and what all it entailed. And like I said, I had nothing but great things from them about Cameron-Brooks. And that kind of made me feel like, okay, Cameron-Brooks is the one I need to be really serious about. And I was.
There's a lot of different ways to make the transition. You were mentioning your brother-in-law earlier found a successful career going through a Service Academy Career Conference for him. And, certainly the power of comparison. We talk about the career search at the Cameron-Brooks conference to be able to interview for a wide variety of opportunities to make the best choice. I think certainly trying to find that right way to make the transition for you, whether it be on your own or having some other kind of partner along the way. I think doing the research and I think the point you made is talk to people who have done it before. Because if I had listened to my brother when I was getting out, who was a civilian back then getting out, I might still be looking for a job. Actually, based on his advice. His advice was go move to the city where you want to live and start looking for a job there. And that's probably not the best advice. So I think that's right. Talk to professionals, talk to people who have done that before. Any broad thoughts on any other parts of your experience on the Cameron-Brooks program or some of the things that you've been through with us that you would want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I wish I could talk, I could talk about the whole DPP program, and I have nothing but great things to say. Some of the things that have been the most beneficial to me is the reading program. And, I started about 10 months ago when I partnered with Cameron-Brooks, and I had decided, hey, I'm going to get out of the military this September. And I was going on deployment, so I ordered, I think, probably 15 books to take with me on deployment. And as I was reading these books, all these business books and kind of, learning, I was applying these things to my day-to-day job in the military while I was forward deployed, whether it was watchstanding, team leadership, organization, planning. And I started to look at problems and projects differently, and I started to incorporate those. So I think it really, number one, it made me finish strong in my time and allowed me to grow as an officer,
right?
Which really only laid the foundation, I think, for me to transition out. So the reading program has been amazing. Additionally, as I've begun to start practicing my interview skills, definitely not a natural thing to do.
Right.
I've actually asked some of my friends who are still in, hey, can you help me out with this question? Let me ask you, how would you answer this question? And I'm like kind of listening to them answer the question, and they're not doing bad, but it's definitely not a natural thing to do, right? So the interview preparation is world class, and study groups have been. I just kind of kicked off my study groups.
Okay, great.
That's been very beneficial. It's not. It's I love doing the intermediate workshops and the basic workshops because that kind of lays the foundation.
Right.
But that is not. That's not where you get all your practice. And the formation of the study group has been great because you just feel kind of equal to the other person. You guys are helping each other out.
And those study groups have been really powerful because even at the career conference, even though it's virtual, they're communicating with each other through phone, text, virtual chat rooms, and things like that, supporting one another, and even in the follow-up interview process. So that's really, really good. It's probably one of the biggest things that I did as a JMO 24 years ago. We lost a little bit of sight of it during kind of when Afghanistan and Iraq and people were deployed so much, it was hard for them to do study groups. But we've come back to it the last 4 or 5 years and really emphasized it. So it's been a great part of the program that I have to give compliments to Pete Van Epps on our team and our relationship managers for really coordinating those. So anything else in terms of like how you're feeling, thinking about as you get ready for the August conference 8-9 weeks out from now?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, when you're making such a huge change and you're going to be interviewing, there's definitely a little bit of anxiety there. But I think it's a good healthy anxiety, right? Because it's kind of like, I have a sports background, playing soccer in college, and it's kind of like those pre-game butterflies, right? But when the whistle blows, it's kind of like, all right, it's go time, So there's some healthy anxiety there. I am, I wish I knew where I was going to be, right? Because I'm a planner.
Right.
I like to plan.
Right.
But that's just not how it always goes, So, and I think my fiance can attest to this too, that I want to just kind of know and always get to the next thing.
Right.
But I'm really just settling in and trying to focus on reading, just interview preparation, getting as much study group time in as I can. And just another thing too is having this time is allowing me to just talk to people who have made the transition out. I'm starting to, identify people with some of the client companies that are partnered with Cameron-Brooks that have been hired for those companies. You start reaching out to them and asking them, and you also get a good base knowledge of kind of the industry and how these companies operate and some of their goals. So I'm trying to take advantage of that as well.
Good.
Yep.
Good. I want to come back to one thing on the skill bridge. Because you incorporated something into our skill bridges as well. So why don't you just share with the listeners as well that might be interested in doing a skill bridge, some of the best practices from doing a skill bridge with Cameron-Brooks and other things that you found that you could augment the Cameron-Brooks program with.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say you definitely need to have a schedule. Having that time, because the skill bridge with Cameron-Brooks is, I'm not coming into the office here in Fredericksburg every single day. So I'm working from home, and that's a huge change for me, just, always going into the office or being on the ship. And having a schedule, just laying out, a timeline, planning, hey, this is what I want to accomplish this week. These are some of the things that I need to get a little smarter on. And then whether that's watching YouTube videos, taking courses online. It's also allowed me time to start. I'm going to get my PMP certification through the O2O program through Syracuse University.
Great.
Which has been great, and highly recommend that to everybody out there who wants to obtain that certification.
And that's the one that you've incorporated for a week in July.
Correct.
Where you're going to do that full time, basically, several hours a day.
Yep, about 7 hours a day. It's a 5-day course to get my 35 hours of classroom training.
Yep.
Totally paid for through the O2O program, as long as you continue to complete your coursework, you show up, and then you get ready for your exams. So I'm looking to take that, have that done by next year.
Excellent.
Yep.
I don't want to just end talking about the Skill Bridge program. So I'd like to ask you, other than getting married, what are you most looking forward to post-military career into the next transition?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm excited about, but just having that time to make the transition I love to learn, and I'm excited to make the transition, launch a new career, just learn a lot, and really work on that work-life balance. Be able to give time back to myself at home, to my future wife Victoria, getting involved in church on a more normal basis, right? Giving back to the community. That's something, that's one of the reasons I wanted to get out of the military. But that's what I'm really excited about. Just there's a lot of change happening in my life right now. Within, I think, about a 45-day period, I'll interview for jobs. Getting married, we're going to go on our honeymoon, and then we're probably going to move somewhere, right? So, so there's a lot of change happening at one time, but just kind of taking it in stride and really just being in the moment and enjoying it. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Excellent. Thanks, Brock, for being here. I really appreciate you two doing this. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.